I was proudly born right here in Dallas, Texas, the son of two immigrants. My parents, though, were born on total opposite sides of the planet. My dad was born in Hungary, and my mom was born in Peru in South America. And while my parents were from total opposite sides of the world, they had one thing in common, and that's that the United States was a beacon to them, knowing that it was a place where if you worked hard, you could build a better life for yourself and your family. So my dad's story first. History buffs out there will know the Soviet Union had occupied Hungary in the 1950s and implemented a strict communist regime. My grandfather, for instance, had a little tailor shop in his hometown called Ica, and the communist regime decided that they didn't need a tailor shop, they needed more workers in the coal mines. So my grandfather's shop was taken from him and he worked in the coal mines. And my dad didn't really have any freedoms either. He illegally listened to Radio Free Europe and Voice of America and learn about this magical place called America where you're free and you can make decisions for yourself. And Hungarians tried to retake their country from the Soviets, but the Soviets crushed that. And my dad realized he wasn't going to experience freedom in Hungary. A couple of years after the revolution, a couple of weeks after the revolution was crushed, my dad's neighbor came over and said, "Hey, we're going west, my uncle and I. Do you want to come?" And my dad said, "Well, when are you leaving?" And he's an adventurous type and really was pretty eager to go. And his friend said, "We're leaving now." And so my dad went and found his mom and said, "Mom, it's time. I'm going west and I'm going to America." And she knew that her son was an adventurer and there was no telling him no. So she gave him 40 forints, which is about $2, and a roll of pepperoni sausage that he carried with him. And that was all he took as he traveled across Europe on trains and refugee camps and finally made it to the coast and hopped on a boat and sailed to America. And I've seen my dad cry twice, and he says he didn't cry when he left home, when he said bye to his mom, and his dad, he didn't get to say bye to his dad because he was working at the time, so he just left. But he said he's cried twice. Once was when his mother died, and once was when he was on this boat sailing into New York Harbor with these other refugees, and he saw the Statue of Liberty for the first time, and realized that he had made it to America and was truly free. And life in America wasn't easy. He became a citizen after a stint in the army, but he did get to experience that freedom that he'd been craving for so long. And he got into motorcycles, which was really where he really felt free. My mom's story is a little different. She was born in Lima, Peru, in South America, to a really very, very poor family. Her mother needed to work full time, so my mother's mother needed to work. So my mother went to live with her grandparents in a small village called Aco in the Andes Mountains in Peru. And that village didn't have running water, there was no electricity, and it was just the portrait of poverty. And my mom attended school there until she was 12, and at 12 she had to go find a full-time job. And so at 12 she became a live-in maid in Lima and shared most of the money she made with her mom and her sister, and that was her life. And at 21 she was still doing that with no education, and she felt like she had no opportunities to make a better life for herself. But she had a friend who had made it to America, and they exchanged letters, and she was telling my mom about America and said that America is where if you work hard and you're smart with your money, you can get ahead and make a better life for herself. So my mom found a sponsor and a job, and she came to the US, and from there she traveled from Boston to DC and Miami and found that better life. And while she kept working as a live-in maid, she was saving money on rent and was creating opportunity by saving up. She eventually bought a little house, which appreciated in value, and life just kept getting better. And my mom, the ship had sailed in her getting an education. But in 1979, she was married and had at that point a son of her own who she decided was going to be the most educated person she could possibly make him. And she was obsessed with my education. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I realize now that was because she had faced so many hardships in her life because of her lack of education. And so she saved every penny she could and gave up her own luxuries to make sure that I got the best education I could. And that's what America was about. It was about education, and Americans made sure that their kids were educated. And while my mom was never formally educated, her son was the first to graduate high school in her family, and then also the first to graduate from college in her family. And so to both my mom and my dad, America meant freedom and opportunity, and that manifested in different ways. My dad wanted to be able to experience wanderlust, and make his own decisions and feel that freedom. My mom desperately wanted to escape poverty and build a better life for herself and her family. And they're a couple of the best Americans I know that contribute so much, and I know how proud they are to be an American, and they share every American value. And I could not be prouder to be their son.